All right, guys, let's go over this very quickly. If we're asked to simplify A and B, A has a negative in the radical. How do we deal with that? Asked to simplify this radical, what do we do? How do we simplify a radical? Factor tree. So I take the number 48, and what goes into 48?
6 and 8.
6 and 8. What goes into 6?
3 and 2.
What goes into 8?
4 and 2.
And what goes into 4?
2 and 2.
All right, and what am I looking for?
Pairs.
Pairs. What pairs do I have?
2.
Pair of 2s and
2.
another pair of 2s. So, where do I write a representation of your pairs?
The inside.
Outside.
On the outside. For each pair, you write down one representation on the outside. So I have a pair of 2s, I write down a 2. I have another pair of 2s, I write down a 2. And what goes on the inside?
3.
What am I missing here that should be there? Why? Why should there be an I? There's a negative in the radical. So where do I put that I?
Or the 3 after the 2.
Yes, right in front of the radical. And then, you see how there's multiple 2's there? What do I do with them?
4.
You multiply them together. So you should get 4i square root 3.
I just put it in y equals.
Can you show how to do it in the calculator?
So, you of course, I showed you last class, do this in your calculator. Does anyone remember how?
Y equals.
You go to y equals
48.
48. Do I put the negative?
No.
No, don't put the negative. Divided by
X squared.
x squared.
That's why.
Ah, yeah, you need the x squared. Then you look in the table, and what are we looking for?
The highest X with
Whole number y.
Yes, the highest x with a whole number for y, which is right there. 4 square root 3. The only thing we need to remember to do is put an I in our answer. 4 square root 3 with an I after the 4. Any questions on this first one? All right, number 2, part B. Number 1, part B. We're asked to simplify negative 12i squared. Now, what did we learn last class is I squared equivalent to? I squared is equal to negative 1. So I'm going to replace that I squared with negative 1. What is negative 12 times negative 1?
12.
Done.
Whoa.
What?
Done.
Wait. What's I by itself?
I by itself is the square root of negative 1. So a plain, oh jeez, a plain I is the square root of negative 1. I squared is negative 1. Now, I know that we haven't gone over this too in depth, and that's why I wanted to put this on this formula. When we don't have a B, so you see here in this number 2, A and B, neither of these have a B value. And by B value, I mean that middle term there, that plain X. So do you recognize how neither A or B has the B value?
Yeah.
What do you do? What is the easiest way to solve these if there is no B? Max, what do you think?
Let me get my warm up. The quickest way?
Yeah.
Divide.
Well, what's happening to the X right now?
It's being divided.
No. Look at number 2, part A.
Okay.
X squared equals 49. What is happening to the X?
It's being squared.
Okay. What is the opposite operation of squared?
No.
Square root.
Square root. So if I'm trying to get this x unsquared, the easiest way is just to square root. Now, if there had been a b, an x, it would be impossible to square root an x. So, because there is no b, I can just square root to get the x all by itself. Now, I square root x squared, and what am I left with?
Doesn't it equal like 7 or something?
Right, that's what the other side equals, but I'm asking, what is the square root of x squared? Yes, the square root and the square cancel each other out. They're opposite operations, so I'm left with an x on that side. Now on the other side, what is the square root of 49?
7.
Not only is it 7, what else is that?
Square.
What else times itself equals 49?
49.
9 and
You're right, 7 and 7, but what else?
1 and 49.
What number times itself?
1 and 4.
Negative 7 and negative 7.
Oh, negative 7 and negative 7. So not only is x equal to a positive 7, x is also equal to a negative 7. Did you ever learn that? Remember? The square root of 49 is equal to actually plus or minus 7
Isn't it in any case number?
when you're square rooting. It's just in most maths, like in geometry, you don't ever really care about that negative version. Because in geometry, you're mainly dealing with lengths and distances, so all you care about is that positive. So, your two solutions here, you have one at 7 and one at negative 7. So our solution set is negative 7, 7. Remember that solution set thing? Now what about B? What's the easiest way to solve this right here? Same thing, but what's different on B? It doesn't have a B. Does it have a plain X? No, that's what I mean by it doesn't have a B value. So what do I have to do first, do you think? Can I look at the differences between A and B?
Subtract the 4.
Yes, you need to get the x squared by itself on one side. So I'm going to subtract 4 over. So x squared is equal to negative 4. Now what? Square root to get rid of the squared. So what is the square root of x squared? Now, what is the square root of negative 4? Not only is it 2i, what else is it? You're right. So we have to put, we know an I is going to be in our answer. What's the square root of 4? What's the square root of 4? 2. But not only is it a positive 2, what else is it? So it's plus or minus 2i. So our solution set is a negative 2i and a positive 2i.
So do we have to put plus and negative?
When we're trying to find the solutions to a quadratic, yes. Because this has how many roots? How many solutions? 2. 2 roots, 2 solutions. Okay? Any questions? Yes. It would be an I if this had been a negative 49. You see how it's positive? Only when there's a negative inside the square root do we deal with I. Okay? Good question. Any other questions here? All right.